So this is me. I'm going to be presenting for the next hour. My name is Wayne Zara. I'm a technical specialist with Zimmer Biomet Tech Services. And I'm a 28-year, very proud to tell you, 28-year CDT. I have over 31 years of experience working in the dental industry. My first 9 years, besides working in the lab at a very young age, I worked for a company called Sterngold that specialized in dental attachments such as ERAs and hater bars and implants and prosthetics. I started with them about 1989, 1990. So for about almost 10 years, I worked for them as a tech specialist, traveling the world, talking about implants and prosthetics. And I also spent approximately 5 or 6 years working with 3M one of the leading companies in regards to restorative materials. And I had wonderful opportunities to understand impressioning, temporization, and it also worked along with the understanding working with implants and prosthetics. I'm also very proud to tell you I'm coming up on 18 years with the company. I actually started with, it was called 3i, Implant Innovations, then it was Biomet 3i, and here we are currently 5-6 years strong as Zimmer Biomet Dental. And within the organization, what I do is I help with technical assistance. What we do is we have a hotline that you're able to call and email, and then there's opportunities if you have questions on implant cases or treatment planning, or just a situation that maybe you have an x-ray that you're trying to identify and you're not sure what it is. This is something that myself and my colleagues that we do every day. The other thing I'm also proud to tell you about is, for me, it's not easy being at home. I've been at home since this has all begun in the middle of March. Typically, my background, I travel about 90 to 95% of the time. I present an average of about 150 to 160 of these evening seminars. And so to be able to come at you, not live, but live in regards to the computer, I'm very happy to be here for you. And I look forward to being out in the field and spending time with you when that time comes. So that's my background. I have a lot of history, and I'm excited to be able to present. When I mention about technical services team, I also want to share this picture with you. The gentleman, so here's me on the left, the gentleman here on the right, this is Craig Smike. This is my compadre, my partner in crime. I'm out of the Chicago area. Craig is out of the Detroit area. And what we do together is that we're a team on the outside that handles a very, very high percentage of the technical calls. Now, there's an opportunity where we have inside tech services, which is phenomenal. And if they're able to answer the question right off the bat, they take care of you right away. But if not, then it goes up to the big guns, and that's Craig and I. And I'm very proud to tell you that we have over 70 years of combined experience in dental technology. So what we do on a daily basis is not only presenting and lecturing and teaching, but a lot of it does have to do with technical phone calls. So this is my email right here, so wayne.zara@zimmerbiomet.com. I want you guys to either write that down or take a picture of that, because if there's anything I can do in regards to this particular presentation, or just thinking outside in regards to maybe articles, anything that I can do, we are here as a service with National Dentex, with corporate Zimmer Biomet, myself, corporate inside sales, our technical service sales team, and then we also have our digital dentistry sales specialists that are phenomenal out in the field that work with all the National Dentex laboratories. We're here to take care of you, and that's a priority. So let's talk about this. What's on your mind? Practice safety, patient safety, less invasive procedures, minimize chairside time, and limited visitations is very important as everything is going on today and getting better every day. We need to also review what we call technical considerations. But I also want to talk about gaining back confidence, because that's really what it's all about. Between the technicians, dental technicians, between the surgeons, general dentists, the office staff, us out in the field at Zimmer Biomet Dental, between all of us as our team, we need to really assure the patient and gain back that quality of high confidence. And that's what we can do, and that's what we can offer. So when I was thinking about putting this presentation together, I was thinking about personal goals. And these personal goals I want to share with you, because they're my goals that I have for you tonight. And what are my goals? Number one, simplify workflows when restoring dental implants. I want to offer you an easy and consistent process. I want to be able to minimize or eliminate product inventory, offer you cost savings, offer your patients superior restorations. And I also want to give you back time. Time gets away from us, as we know. Time is so important, and we need to be able to understand what it is that I can do, my program tonight, in an understanding with our products when we talk about digital dentistry to give you back time. So let's think of a scenario. It's Sunday. You had a wonderful weekend, and then here you are. It's Monday morning. You're in your practice. You're sitting in your office. You got your cup of coffee, and then you have your list of all the things that are going to go on for that day, right? All the things you're going to be doing with your patients. And there's certain things that you look at on that piece of paper and you go, okay, this ain't bad. But then there's certain things that you really enjoy doing. Obviously, it's implants, right? But it could be a lot of different things. This particular product tonight that I want to share with you truly gives you back time. And it gives you time to do the things within your practice that you truly enjoy doing. I know you enjoy everything within your practice, and everything that you do for your patients is absolutely wonderful, and it's a great opportunity. But the fact is, if I can truly give you back time and do what you enjoy doing most within your business, I tell you, that's a plus, that's a positive for all of us. So in regards to my presentation for you tonight, I want you to sit back, I want you to relax, I want you to enjoy the presentation, but I would also like you to take some notes. So let's think outside the box. Let's think outside the box. Digital dentistry. Number one, it's a hot topic. It's cutting edge technology. It offers simplification. When you work as a team, we don't work as individuals anymore. Between the specialist, the general dentist, the laboratory, the company, us, all the people that are involved, and the patient, we all work as a team. And that's so important because it streamlines the process so things are more simplified. I want to be able to customize your patient's experience. I want to be able to maintain control of your final restorative restoration. And the bottom line is, my summary, I want to give you options. So what do I mean by options? So when we're talking about dental implants, if we think about old school traditional techniques, when we restore dental implants, we're talking about parts and pieces, and we're talking about fixture level impressions, open tray, closed tray. You guys all know those technologies. And if you want to continue with that type of a technology where the laboratory fabricates their model and then they go ahead with their treatment plan to design you a beautiful restoration with a beautiful smile for your patient, you can do that. I will tell you that 90 to 95% of what the laboratory is going to be doing from your fixture level impression is going to be a CAD/CAM restoration. I couldn't say that years ago, but I have no problem telling you that today. Now, on the other hand, you also have other opportunities, and we're going to discuss those tonight. All right, so I'm going to take you back a little bit. You guys didn't know that you're going to have a history lesson, did you? Well, I want you to go back about 30, maybe even 40 years. I mean, for myself, I've been working with implants and prosthetics starting at about 1982, 1983, just to kind of give you an idea. And at that time, things were very, 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 very limited. When I talk about abutment history, we're talking about custom abutments. Everything that we did 30 to 40 or 25 years ago, everything that we did was waxing and casting and customization of restorations. We would have beautiful patient-specific design restorations. We would have profile. We would have shape. We would have contour. The teeth basically looked natural when we created a natural-looking restoration, but that didn't always happen. So back in the day, we basically had one implant. It was a Brandemark implant. And what was that? It was an external hexed implant. It was a 3.75 thread. It had a 4.0 or 4.1 restorative platform, external hex, and it was a commercially pure titanium alloy style of material. So you had all of these different materials creating these dental implants, talking about osseointegration and success. But when we talked about materials and we talked about the restoration, we would sometimes, unfortunately, have one size fits all. And back then, wherever the implant went in, meaning wherever the bone was, everything was surgically driven back then, not like it is today. We didn't have CT guidance. We didn't have torque wrenches. We didn't have any of these things. But we knew we had an implant that integrated, osseointegrated, and we also knew that we had very, very good prosthetics. But unfortunately, some of these restorations look like this on the upper left-hand side. It looked like a potato on a pencil or a tomato on a stick. It came up and came out. Everything back then was also screw-retained because it would come loose. And not only did it come loose, but we also had situations of food traps, and it was difficult for the patient to clean that style of restoration. But let me explain this. There were a lot of benefits to the custom abutment, and that was waxing and casting. But the fact is, I want to share something with you today. We don't do too much of waxing and casting anymore for various reasons, and I'm going to talk about those shortly. But let me explain this. I want you to understand that UCLA still can be widely utilized in situations where you're minimal on your vertical space. Now, number one, I can angle correct, as you see here on the right-hand side, upper right-hand side. I can angle correct a custom UCLA, waxing and casting up to 30 degrees, and I could do that with a CAD/CAM restoration. But minimal vertical space. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. How much limited vertical space can I make a screw-retained UCLA and still have function? It's going to look like a pancake, but it's going to work. Believe it or not, 4 millimeters. But I can't do that in a stock abutment restoration. I can't do that in a tie base, and I cannot do that in a CAD/CAM style of restoration. So the bottom line is that custom abutments still have their place, minimally utilized, but keep in mind, 4 millimeters of overall vertical space, and you can still get a nice screw-retained restoration by waxing and casting. All right, so let's go on. That's custom abutment and UCLAs. Let's talk about stock abutments, prefabricated stock abutment restorations. They're always customizable. You can prepare the margin. You can shape the height, shape the facial aspect, whatever it is to create a tooth prep style of restoration. But I want you to think about this. When I talk about restorations, you know, are teeth round? No, they're not always round. That's why we think about CAD/CAM custom styles of restorations and maybe UCLAs, and then CAD/CAM we're going to talk about in a little bit. But the thing I want you to keep in mind, and this is my definition of a prefabricated stock abutment. This is my definition. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but I think I'm pretty good on this one though. When the implant is placed in the most ideal tooth location, the most perfect location, I'm talking about if you have a 5 millimeter implant, and here I have from between implants, it would be 3 millimeters of space. From an implant to the natural teeth, I need at least 1.5. And then buccolingual, I need at least 1.5 to 2 millimeters. This is all good spacing to place a dental implant. So in this particular case, it is the most perfect, ideal tooth location. So the fact is, can we go ahead and utilize a stock abutment and have a nice anatomical look to that restoration? And the answer is yes. But if it's a little bit more mesial, distal, buccolingual, if it's in any other position, then we should not be thinking about stock abutments. And I'm going to explain to you why in just a moment. Here we went ahead and prepared the stock abutment. We have a beautiful crown. And then when you look at the restoration in the mouth, it looks perfect. But what we need to truly understand is that if the implant is not placed, our surgeons are always trying to place it perfectly, but if it's not perfectly placed in the ideal tooth location, then this type of an abutment, a stock abutment, should not be utilized. So we have to really kind of understand and know what's going on below the tissue. So check this out. In 2002, $342.75. $342.75. What does that represent? Do you guys know? Well, let's jump ahead to 2009. 2009, gold hit over $1,000 an ounce. In 2012, it hit over $1,600 an ounce. Currently, the gold price as of today, this morning, was a little over $1,600. So things changed. We got away from waxing and casting, UCLAs. You know, not only was it cumbersome to work with, and it was worth every penny from the laboratory technician and all the work that they do to make it a beautiful restoration, but the fact is that it potentially added on $200 to $300 onto your case back then. And that's still a problem today. So if you look at this particular situation, you can see that the implant is not placed perfectly, but aesthetically it's pleasing above the tissue, but you got to really know what's going on below the tissue. So that's a prefabricated stock abutment. So let me ask you this. Do you think that there's a potential for cement issues to occur with that cementable restoration? Because everything back in the day was screw retained because of problems. And then everything went to cementable restorations. Only in the last 10 years have we really been going screw retained. And we'll talk about screw retained in a little bit also. throughout the presentation, but that's a prefabricated stock abutment. Do you think there's a potential problem for cement? Do you think there's a potential problem for cleansability? Well, let me share this with you. We took off that restoration and look at the problem, cement. Cement deteriorates tissue very, very quickly. It's almost like a scenario would be if you took a hot skillet and you took a stick of butter, you put it into that skillet, that's how it affects the tissues. And then lastly, if you have a beautiful implant placed, you preserve bone, preserve tissue, preserve papilla, preserve preventing the black triangle, and then we lose bone because of cement, which deteriorates very quickly, just like it deteriorates the tissue. I'm going to tell you right now, it is the most unpredictable area of implant dentistry is for a specialist to grow back healthy bone. And I know that my surgeons would agree. So this is what we do. We talk about CAD/CAM styles of restorations. We talk about emergence, profile, shape, contour. And if this was either screw retain or in this case cementable, it's going to be easy to prevent or clean the cement. And not only that, we're also going to have the ability for the patient to utilize their superfloss, their proxy brush, whatever it is that they have to keep that restoration clean compared to the left side. I also want to talk about this. So this is another example. So we have, unfortunately, a stock abutment, and it should work, and it looks decent. It's not perfectly placed. It's a little more closer to the mesial aspect and a little further away from the distal aspect. You can kind of see it's not perfectly placed, but I will tell you that a stock abutment was utilized, and you can see the result. Is that going to be a problem for cement or for cleansability? Potentially. So we took that same site and created a CAD/CAM restoration. And I get it. Healing abutments are round. Some of them have a little bit of an emergence type of profile and shape. But when you take something round and you put on a custom CAD/CAM style restoration, you will see some blanching, and you potentially might see an issue where it might even have a rebound, where the patient might have some impingement of tissue, and they might kind of grab your arm and say, oh, that hurts, or they might even have a little tear. I get that. So my suggestion is this. What I'd like to do is remove the healing abutment, put a little topical on, put the healing abutment back on, and then from there wait a couple minutes and then try reseating the restoration. And I would always have a seating jig. You must have a seating jig from your laboratory to seat these cementable restorations. Now, on the other hand, let's just say that you might also suggest anesthetizing the patient. Give them a little anesthetization, and then that way the patient's comfortable in seating this restoration, because it's not a stock abutment, it's a custom abutment, which is going to look beautiful, and it's going to be patient-specific. The blanching will go away. You have a beautiful restoration, which is going to be easy to clean cement and also easy to clean for the patient and hygiene. What's also quite interesting is that keep in mind that CAD/CAM 10 or 12 years ago was expensive, and there was a reason for that. Not too many people were involved in CAD/CAM dentistry. We were still waxing and casting, and then we had the gold crisis, and we had a down economy back then, which obviously everything is changing, but gold is still high. We want to get away from stock abutments because of cement issues that are occurring all the time. And nowadays, these custom abutments are now lower in cost, which are definitely more affordable to your patients, and it's more profitable to you. 90 to 95% of what laboratory technicians do, if I was to survey a room of technicians and said, hey guys, girls, how many of you are waxing and casting? I'm going to tell you it's going to be like 2% of their business. Stock abutments have also come down considerably. It's maybe like 25 or 30% of their business. All the other parts of the business is CAD/CAM dentistry, and it's come down considerably in cost. I wanted to show you this picture. So even though that a stock abutment is less in price, supposedly, some labs, people are marking them up now because we don't want to do stock abutments. We want to do CAD/CAM, and it's more cost effective, and it's better for the patient, as you can see here. But what's interesting for this coping, it takes less metal to support the porcelain. Over here, this is a stock abutment. It takes more metal to support the porcelain. So in actuality, because of the cost of gold, this stock abutment actually costs more than the CAD/CAM restoration because it has more metal to support the porcelain. That's kind of an interesting scenario. So let's talk about optimization and the key to success, to beautiful aesthetics. The Zimmer Biomet BellaTek Encode impression system aims to provide optimized solutions to clinicians by eliminating the need for implant-level impressions, which streamlines the impression process for the surgeon, restorative clinician, and laboratory. In addition, the patients have a better experience and a beautiful aesthetic outcome compared to traditional procedures with an impression coping or a scan body. So take a look here on the left. You are all familiar with these parts and these pieces. We got open tray and closed tray impressions. We also have implant mounts that you can take impressions with. We have some snap cap type designs with plastic components that take impressions, and there's also scan bodies. But let me ask you this. What if I can eliminate everything on the left and utilize one item? Zimmer Biomet is the only company in the world that provides this particular product, and it's very unique, and it has a great history to it. It is a healing abutment that is placed by the implant placer, for example, the surgeon. Whoever's placing the implant, they place the healing abutment, and we heal the tissue accordingly. What's going to happen is that, what if I told you that the top of the healing abutment is encrypted with information? And what if I told you that that information can either be impressed or digitally scanned, and just by doing that, you can get back this beautiful piece of jewelry that you see on the right-hand side. That is the most gorgeous anterior restoration with a zirconia crown with a beautiful aesthetic result. And I think that you would all agree when you see those pictures. But isn't that truly amazing? And how do we do this? All right, the BellaTek Encode impressioning system. Let me tell you about this product. Secrets of the system, the Encode healing abutment. The top of the healing abutment has indentations that gives me information. Emergence profile, connection type, implant diameter, abutment height, and hex position. This is also a two-piece healing abutment, and it needs to be a two-piece. Back in the day, the original Branamark implant, remember when it healed, sometimes it took over a year, and it was a 50-50 shot, where sometimes those implants worked and sometimes they didn't. I'm talking in the beginning stages of this whole science many, many, many years ago. But Dr. Branamark put on there a two-piece healing abutment. And the reason why is because we didn't want the healing abutment to come loose. That was the whole purpose of a two-piece healing abutment. One-piece healing abutments could potentially come loose. The patient could potentially swallow. These are the scenarios that happen, and they happened many, many, many years ago. But they also currently could happen with a one-piece healing abutment today from every company, including Zimmer Biomet. But this is what we call a two-piece, and it's designed so it actually locks down inside the implant, so it has anti-rotation, and it's designed to be very stable, so then that way it doesn't rotate. We can take a digital scan, we can take an impression, we can work with the laboratory MDX, and then go on with the process to deliver these beautiful, beautiful restorations. So there is a history to this system. Believe it or not, it's been around for over 16 years. But let's think about this. You go back 16 years ago, we weren't thinking about, I mean, you had the CERAC, we had the blue cam, the red cam, single unit, multiple unit, not like today with the Omnicam and such and all the other digital areas of implant dentistry. But the fact was, this product, to be honest with you, it was way ahead of its time. And when you go back 16 years ago, the process was this. It was actually developed by a group of guys and girls down at corporate in West Palm Beach when the company was called Biomet 3i. And what they did was that they went through a process of thinking about a simplistic way to restore dental implants. And it was actually, these people were at a bar. This is how the story goes. They were at a bar. They're brainstorming these ideas, and on a cocktail napkin, they came up with Encode. But let me explain something. With Encode, what you did was that you took an impression of the Encode. Nobody really had digital scanners, right? There was CERACs out there, but it wasn't too many. But you took an impression of the Encode healing abutment. You would send that impression to the lab. The lab would make a model. They would send the model down to corporate in West Palm Beach, Biomet 3i at the time, today's Zimmer Biomet. And what you would do is that they would scan it with what they call a 3-shaped digital scanner. And then that scanner would actually design the abutment. And then we would mail back this beautiful piece of jewelry back to the lab. Now check this out. There was no models involved. We didn't know a way to make a model, not like we do today. But the fact is, when you go back that many years, 16 years ago, what the lab would do is they would make you a pickup coping. Did I say the word pickup coping? When's the last time you heard that? So with single unit restorations, what we would do is that the first appointment you took a simplistic impression, easy peasy, in and out. That's how we did it. The second appointment, you would place the abutment, you would place the pickup coping, you would take an impression, send everything back to the lab, and on the third appointment, you would deliver the restoration. It was costly, and that doesn't make sense. Who wants to deliver restorations, even though that it's simplified procedures, no impression copings, no parts and pieces, but who wants to deliver a restoration in 3 appointments? Nobody. So we got to move forward. We got to think outside the box as a company. So let's jump up a couple years. Check this out. I asked my surgeons at the time of the surgical placement to surgically index with a temp cylinder or an impression coping. I asked my surgeons to take an impression. How do you think that that worked out? Some people caught on and some people said, you know, I just don't want to do it. But also I'm going back 13, 14 years ago. So my dentists restoring the Encode restorations, they didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, meaning that the dentist took an impression of the healing abutment. They sent that to the lab. The lab took the index. They did model-based surgery. They dug out the healing abutment. They placed an analog on the bottom of my index. They made a soft tissue model, as you see here. What they also did was that they had that original impression of the Encode healing abutment from you. This is a different style of model. And what we decided to do is we sent that model down to corporate. They designed the abutment. They milled the abutment. But in the meanwhile, with this model, I had an opportunity to take the abutment when it came back from corporate, put it on the model, and make my crown. So now you were delivering the restoration in 2 appointments, and it worked out great. But it didn't work out that great. The surgeons didn't like to take the impressions, and it was still a little bit costly when you go back 13, 14 years ago. So let's jump ahead a couple more years. Robotics, robotic placement, designing, creating, milling, placing an analog, creating an abutment that goes into the analog. Look at the beautiful shape of the restoration. Look at the shape of the restoration of the abutment seated. This was a game changer, robotics. But it had its ups and downs. It did. Trying to just make sure that it worked perfectly, make sure that it was very precise. It had some ups and downs over the years, but I'm going to tell you, it worked, and it worked beautifully. But it was a little bit more expensive. And when I say a little bit more expensive, maybe anywhere between $50 to $100. But was it well worth it? Absolutely. But, you know, the thing was, could there be a better option? Digital Dentistry came out about 10 to 12 years ago. We worked with these 3 companies. We worked with Itero, 3M, and Cerac. And that's how the digital dentistry era started. Nowadays, we work with all the different companies. When you work with National Dentex, which is what we call an Encode empowered lab, they have a wonderful opportunity to accept your impression, accept your scan with all National Dentex laboratories. They work together as a network, working together with us. And not only do we have the ability to accept any type of scan, but we also have the ability to do things a little bit differently. Let me talk about one more aspect that I thought was going to be mind-blowing, and this is going back about 8, maybe 9 years ago. So here, think about it. We got Encode, we got digital dentistry, we got intraoral scanning, we got all this going on. So I thought that this last bottom picture was going to be earth-shattering to our business, but it didn't. Let me explain something. What do you guys think as doctors? If you can take a simplistic impression or a digital scan and get back from your laboratory, now this is for a cementable restoration, you get back a little box from every National Dentex laboratory. I don't know all the pricing plus or minus, but it was like $295 as an example. Could have been a little higher, could be a little less. Well, but I'm also going back 9 years ago. But check this out. You took your impression, and then your next appointment, you delivered the restoration. And what did you deliver? You got this little box from the lab. You got the abutment, the crown, and the screw. What if I told you that's all you had to do is remove the healing abutment? You went through the process to deliver the restoration like normal, traditional techniques, seating the abutment, x-ray, going on with the case, torquing and cementing your crown. But what if I told you through a modelless procedure, modelless, that you had no occlusal adjustments and no contact adjustments, and the patient was in, the patient was out, and it was awesome. What do you guys think about that? Cost-effective, simplicity at its best, CAD/CAM restoration, impressioning, or digitally scanning. It's almost kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. But the fact was, it kind of backfired on us. Do you know why? Because you guys as doctors, and me as an old school technician, the fact is that hard to teach an old dog new tricks. What do I mean by that? We're traditional. We have our process, and we're hard to change that process. This is a modelless procedure. And what did you guys want? You wanted models. So you need to have a model. So now, think about this. We weren't printing 9 years ago. And all of a sudden, printing started to only come out in popularity in the last 5 or 6 years. But now I had to find a way to work with what we call 3-shape digital scanners. That's what we use to design and fabricate the encodes. That's what National Dentex uses. So we had to find a way to digitize, but blend that information to network with a printer. And 5, 6 years ago, we're all trying to figure out what is the best printers. But today is a different day. Today is a different day. What do I mean by that? So today, when you work with NDX, you receive the following from a simplistic impression or intraoral scan of an Encode healing abutment. Check out the picture in the middle. Today, through a digital scan or impression, you're going to get back a printed model with or without soft tissue, with or without as a tooth prep or with an analog, the abutment, the screw, and the crown. Now this works for single units, multiple units, full arch restorations. You can get this type of process, this type of technique through a simplistic impression or digital scan of an Encode healing abutment. Truly, truly amazing, artistic, aesthetic. There's nothing better out there on the market. This is truly amazing dentistry, but it's available for you today. All the bugs, all the history is worked out to get it to where we are. And this is just a fantastic picture to share with you. So NDX Dental Laboratories is a network. They're what we call Encode empowered laboratory. They are a preferred laboratory organization. They have quality service, craftsmanship, reliability, and knowledge. They are a trusted partnership with Zimmer Biomet Dental. They've invested in Encode, the licensure. They've outfitted with proprietary 3-shape libraries. We use the 3-shape. That's what the 3-shape looks like. That's a digital laboratory scanner. That's what they use to design the case. And it truly is one of the most efficient workflows on the market. I don't know of anything else on the market that has this simplistic workflow. So let's talk about patient opportunity number 1. So Encode traditional impression. So if you don't have a digital scanner, so what you do is that you go ahead and you take an impression. There's your healing abutments. The healing abutments are placed. You take an impression, you take an opposing, and you take a bite. On your next appointment, working with National Dentex, working with your laboratory, you're going to have your abutments and your crowns, minimal contact adjustments, minimal occlusal adjustments, and you can send your patient on their way. So this is patient opportunity number 1 through a traditional impression. Doesn't get any easier than this. Well, does it get any easier? Patient opportunity number 2. This is an Encode intraoral scan digital impression. Remember, the top of the healing abutment is imprinted with all this information. So as a patient, you go ahead and you get a digital scan. It goes through NDX. They go through the process to decipher the codes, and then they go through the process of digitally designing the abutments. And when they digitally design that abutment, they send the file down to corporate Zimmer Biomet in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we become a milling center. We mill the abutment. In the meanwhile, the laboratory is splitting the file and begin printing of their models. And not only that, if they want to go all digital, did I say the word digitalist? No. If they want to go modelless, you can't go digitalist. If you go modelless, then you could do that also. Or you can also design and start milling your crown in advance. So all that work is being behind the scenes. as the abutment is milled and then shipped back to the lab within just a couple of days. Models are printed, a beautiful PFM is fabricated, as you can see here. That restoration was a wow factor for your practice and for your patient. It is the best of technologies. And what do I mean by that? For this particular patient, it was a wow factor. For this particular patient, when the restoration seated, this was a cementable restoration. If they wanted to do screw retain, we could, but in this case, we did cementable. And from here, there was no contact adjustments, and there was also no occlusal adjustments. And what do you guys think of that restoration? What do you guys think? You better all say it is awesome, because that's my mouth, that's my crown, that's my implant. I have several. I shouldn't be proud of that, but I got a couple of implants, some failed endos. But I have a couple of implants. I have all Encode styles and impressions through traditional impressioning or digital dentistry, and this is one example of digital dentistry at its best. So that's my restoration. When you restore implants, sometimes you have difficult cases, like trying to take an impression in the posterior, trying to take impressions on angled implants, trying to take impressions on implants that are angled towards each other. This is difficult stuff. Not easy case to take an impression. You see here that the impression coping is too close to the tooth. In this case here, we're trying to adjust it. That's a tech call. And the answer is, can you adjust an impression coping? The answer is yes, but you got to be cautious of that. And the reason is that this is a closed tray technique. You got to transfer that back into an impression. That's going to be very difficult. I would have maybe done an open tray. I would have adjusted to create the space. I would have tied them together with dental floss and went through a process of maybe utilizing acrylics or GC pattern resin or flowable composite. I would have connected it together and picked up the impression, but that's not what we did here. We put on Encode healing abutments. You can see the angle issue. This is utilizing a CEREC. This is an Omnicam. So we put the Encode healing abutments on. We went through the digital file, sending it to the laboratory, designing, creating, seating with a beautiful aesthetic result. Taking something so difficult, but making it so easy. So let's talk about everyday scenarios. It's the end of the day, you just found out that your implant patient is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and someone forgot to order the impression copings. Does that ever happen? No, not at all. You need to order the impression copings, but you cannot find the surgeon release letter. Has that ever happened? You got to have the letter to order the parts and the pieces. Patients in the chair and the impression copings are not the right size, or maybe they're incorrect parts. Nah, that's never happened. This is the best one. Doesn't matter what you do, it's just not working. Have you ever come across a situation in restoring dental implants when any of these scenarios has occurred? And if it occurs one time is enough. So let's keep in mind, what if we could say goodbye to impression copings and scan bodies? What if? So let's talk about digital dentistry. Digital dentistry is everywhere. CT guidance, radiography. There's the Omnicam, digital dentures. Here's a laboratory technician working with 3Shape, designing abutments, bars, designing partial dentures, printing, casting. They're still casting partial dentures every once in a while. Printing models and CAD/CAM dentistry. Digital dentistry is everywhere. And what is digital dentistry? Well, in a nutshell, it's CAD/CAM. Computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing. Digital dentistry may be defined on a broad scope as any dental technology or device that incorporates digital or computer-controlled components, in contrast to that of mechanical or electrical alone, CAD/CAM. When you work with CAD/CAM, there's all different types of options. There are options where if you took a fixture-level impression and you sent it to the lab, the odds of the lab fabricating a CAD/CAM abutment utilizing a scan body, which is this right here, is going to be very high. Nobody wants to wax and cast, and nobody wants to cut back or mill a stock abutment and then potentially have the problems of cement. So CAD/CAM is everywhere. We utilize sometimes scan bodies, as that you can see here in the bottom left, and then sometimes we utilize the product Encode. There's a lot of clinical benefits of CAD/CAM dentistry. Ideal anatomical contours, correct emergence profiles, proper marginal placement, angle correction up to 30 degrees, and proper restorative supports to design your restoration. These are all beautiful, beautiful pictures. Features and benefits of digital dentistry. Now let me explain something also. When we talk about Encode, there are some simple steps to consistent results. When you work with Encode, you need to make sure that the healing abutment the occlusal is exposed by at least 1 millimeter. If any tissue overgrows the edge, if you impress it or you intraoral scan it, you can't read it. And that's a problem. We've learned this over the last 16 years. So what I want you to do, and our surgeons know this, to be able to place a healing abutment, it's a little taller and a little wider. It's always better for impressioning or digital scanning. The other thing is we want to make sure that you hand tighten. I want you to hand tighten that center screw. It shouldn't come loose, but I just want to verify that. If it did come loose, you can understand the problems of what can happen. Restorations won't seat. We want to stay away from that. I want to make sure that this thing is flawless. So always hand tighten. Always take an x-ray to verify that it's down metal to metal, and then you can take an impression and you verify that the impression is correct. Make sure there's no pulls, voids, bubbles, anything on the inside. It's just a very traditional, simplistic impression. You can use a monophase. You can use a heavy body in a wash, a putty, polyvinyl. You can utilize polyether like Impergum. Anything you want to use is absolutely fine. No alginates. Never, never for alginates. I'm going to go ahead and take a drink. Hope that you guys are all enjoying the seminar tonight. This is a beautiful example of a simplistic impression. And believe it or not, from the impression, this is the type of jewelry. Believe it or not, from an impression, that's what you can get. That's what you receive. A beautiful CAD-CAM abutment. We're taking something round and we're creating shape. We're creating shape, emergence profile. This is digital dentistry at its best. And I want to share this with you also, and this is really important. How many of you take x-rays of impression copings before you send it off and you take your impression and send it off to the lab? How many of you take x-rays? Probably all of you. How many of you take that x-ray and duplicate it and send it to the lab? I'm going to guess not too many hands would go up. From now on, I want you to take that x-ray and I want you to send it along to the lab, and the lab will love you for it. There's a major appreciation because 77% of your business, I don't know if you guys know this or not, 77% of your business is where? For a single unit restoration in the mouth. Where is it? It's basically the lower first molar, and that's what we call the money tooth. 77% of your business is the lower first molar. So you have adjacent teeth. And when we take impressions or digitally scan, I can't see what's going on or to see where the bone is. You can see here that the laboratory, in having this information, can design the restoration to come up and out like a tulip type shape versus up and out where potentially, like in this case here, hitting the bone and not seating. So this is a problem. But if you send the x-ray, it's going to help the laboratory understand that they can create what's called a vertical offset to bring it up and out. And I'm going to tell you, it only takes one situation for a general dentist seating a restoration, and for whatever reason, it's not going down. And then it goes back to the surgeon, and they're flapping tissues and so on. And you shouldn't have to do that. This x-ray will help you. BellaTek Encode impressioning system, we utilize it for multiple unit restorations. We also utilize it for full arch restorations. And we also utilize it where I think the money tooth, the 77% of your business is right here. Single unit posterior restoration. A great example, Encode, as you see here, the healing abutment. Here we have removing the healing abutment, placing the abutment, and then going ahead and delivering a beautiful cementable restoration. Now let me share this with you also. There are two options available for a screw retain restoration. You can do an Encode as screw retain, or we also have our new, if you like a tie base, we actually have what they're called certain, and they're called TSV, BellaTek Express or Flex abutments. And they can angle correct, the certain can angle correct up to 20 degrees, and the TSV can angle correct up to 25 degrees. But those are tie bases. We still do digital dentistry, but it's not a CAD-CAM style of restoration. But we do offer the two different styles. What is screwmentable? A screwmentable is an abutment, crown, and screw. The crown is a hole through the restoration and is eventually cemented chairside by the dentist or by the dental laboratory technician. Before cementation, the restoration was a two-piece, and now it's a one-piece. The implant crown can now be screwed down, torqued, and access hole sealed, and composite fill placed over the hole, sealing the restoration. So that's a screwmentable. It's a two-piece which is bonded together. This is so important to understand. If you want a screw retained restoration, a CAD-CAM screw retained restoration, you must prepare the adjacent restorations. So that way we follow the line of draw of either the implant or the line of draw of the abutment. If the laboratory bonds the crown to the abutment with an access hole, and you think that you could just screw it down without having to adjust and just go down perfectly, it doesn't always happen. I see these cases all the time. See the one here on the left? It's open because of draw. You can see here on the right, this is an example of a tie base, aftermarket tie base, and you can see that it doesn't draw because of the contacts, because of the draw here. You have an emergence profile of these restorations that weren't adjusted. So please adjust the adjacent contacts prior to taking your impression or a digital scan. Or go through that process, but have the lab deliver it back to you as an abutment and a crown, 2 pieces. Try in the abutment, try in the crown, do your adjustments. If everything draws, you can bond it together outside the mouth. But if it doesn't draw, it's not uncommon to place the abutment, cement the crown to the abutment inside the mouth. It has an access hole, but it defeats the purpose because it's not screw retained anymore. It's basically a cementable restoration. But always adjust your contours and contacts. This is a great example for one of my good friends named Tony Prestipino, lectures all over the world on implants and prosthetics, and showed me the simple procedure to show the doctors. Just go ahead and take a guide pin, meaning a hand driver, and put it into the top of your healing abutment or your cover screw, whatever is there, and then look at the draw of the restoration and check your parallels them. That's like one of the coolest pictures that I can ever share with you. When we talk about screwmentable, it's not a problem to do it with Encode. Digitally scan, the laboratory will create a beautiful abutment, a beautiful crown with an access hole, and you can go on with your procedure. So if you want a screw retained restoration by Encode or a cementable restoration, you have the choices. This is a very good example of an Encode, which is screw retained. You can see we have a good line path of draw. We have a restoration that potentially was bonded by the laboratory, minimal adjustments on the contacts. We take our x-rays, we go ahead and torque, we seal the access holes. Everybody's utilizing Teflon tapes nowadays, and then we seal with composite and adjust. Finally, can Encode be utilized in the interior? Here's taking an impression. Absolutely yes. What's available from the Certain system, from the Biomet Certain system, is a beautiful titanium abutment, titanium that could also be, it's a titanium alloy material, but it can also be coated with titanium nitride coating. It's got that beautiful yellow hue. And then that's that zirconia restoration in the bottom middle picture. From TSV, from Zimmer, on Encode, you can not only get back a titanium alloy abutment, which is silver in color, and eventually we will get to the point where we will titanium nitride, not at this point, but we will. But we also do offer zirconia, and they offer 3 different shades, as you can see here. So why digital dentistry? Let me bring you home. Digital dentistry from Zimmer Biomet offers precision, simplified treatments, improved patient experience, reduced cost, and it's a unique digital solution. We work with these 3 companies, but now we work with all different companies. When you work with us and you work with National Dentex as an Encode empowered lab, they will accept these scans from not only these companies, but from many, many others. And this is a quick example. So an Encode healing abutment is placed. We digitally scan. We take these images from the scanner to the lab. The lab decodes the top of the healing abutment, and they can create models by printing or milling models with or without analogs, with or without soft tissue. They can create a crown through digital technology or old school PFM, as you can see here, and then we deliver the restoration. It's as easy as that. The benefits of intraoral scanning: better for your patient, faster turnaround times, instant confirmation from the lab, more accurate fit on the margins, the contact points, and the occlusion and the bite is less distorted. Very few adjustments and remakes. Patient sees a higher value, saves time and money, and there's no more messy impressions when you intraorally scan. So let's talk about MDX and the Zimmer Biomet digital workflow. It's very, very easy. Simplistic process restoring dental implants, working with the restorative clinician, with you, MDX, and Zimmer Biomet. So this is what we do. The restorative clinician takes a PVS impression or polyether, or an intraoral scan, and they send it to the lab, to MDX, an Encode empowered lab. They're going to decode the Encode. They're going to basically design the abutment, and they're going to send the file to Zimmer Biomet in West Palm Beach. What we're going to do at Zimmer Biomet is we're going to mill the abutment, and we're going to send that back to National Dentex. So that way the final restoration can be fitted and then delivered. So this is how the workflow begins. Restorative clinician scans the Encode healing abutment. 2 to 3 months after implant surgery, of course, the surgeon checks the implant, do a torque test, you get the green light, restore the case. You can go through the process of digitally scanning or impressing. Digitally scanning, send the file to NDX. NDX confirms the accuracy of the digital impression, and they hold on to that file. The next thing they're going to do, NDX contacts you as the doctors, and they're going to ask you about the shade, the material, and they're going to talk about if there's any other requests or preferences. NDX will decode the Encode healing abutment and design the abutment within their 3Shape software. They're going to send that information to Zimmer Biomet, and that's all that we're going to do at Zimmer Biomet is mill the abutment. NDX sends the abutment design file to Zimmer Biomet for an authentic OEM, original equipment manufactured CAD/CAM abutment. NDX fabricates the crown and printed model. NDX sends the model, abutment, and crown to the restorative clinician for delivery. And that's how it works. It is so simplified. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. But let me mention one thing. OEM is so important today. I still see screw loosening out there. And I see these cases where the crowns are too big or the crowns are occlusions too high. We should be using shim stock or mylar strips, and the occlusion should be light. The cusp tip should be shallow or flat. The buccal lingual aspect of that first molar should be more narrow than a standard restorative restoration. Not only that, the patient should be going home with a night guard. If we follow OEM and all those principles that I just mentioned, then this restoration should last a lifetime. Now you guys know what I mean by that. The implant should last a lifetime, and of course the restoration can be adjusted and opposing arches change, and I get that. But they should last a lot longer than sometimes what I hear. And one of the biggest problems is this. This is my analogy. I want you to take your abutment, and NDX knows to work with us and to restore utilizing OEM technology. But if a laboratory steps outside the box and they utilize an aftermarket abutment, which bypasses patents of restorations and companies, let me explain what happens. I want you, as the doctors, I want you to get your loops on, I want you to take the abutment, and I want you to take an analog, and I want you to put it together and check the fit. And unfortunately, I'm in Chicago, I'm a Midwestern guy, I got 5 cats, 2 dogs, a fish, and 3 horses. And I'm going to tell you, socks on a rooster. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that terminology, but look at that picture, socks on a rooster. That's the fit if you don't use OEM technology. So that's very, very important. You're going to have the abutment, the crown, and you're going to deliver. And that's how that it works. The last part of the presentation, and I'm done, I want to share something with you that I think is wonderful. I will share with you that many surgeons today are getting more on board to working with restorative doctors, meaning that they are purchasing and investing in an intraoral scanner. I mean, the surgeons now are printing models and fabricating surgical guides, and they're doing all this wonderful dentistry, but they're also utilizing intraoral scanners. And the opportunity for you as a dentist to talk with your surgeon. Now, not all surgeons digitally scan. I get that. And I'm not here to say that that's what they all need to do. But I will tell you that if you have a scanner, but if you don't have a scanner, you could take an implant level impression, you could take an Encode impression. But if you have a surgeon that has a scanner, no parts and pieces to order, increase patient satisfaction, you work together as a team, and you have the ability to restore this case in less office visits. And that is so important today. So if you network with your specialist and they have an intraoral scanner, to be able to digitally scan an Encode and then send it working with NDX to get back your restorations and deliver in a shorter period of time, high profitability, don't change your fees. I mean, this is how that it works, and it works beautifully. It's a prosthetically driven surgical solution. It's a benefit for you as restorative clinicians. Impressions scan at surgical visits. So the healing abutment is placed. The implant gets the green light. But at that point, it can come back to you and then you could do your protocols and procedures, or the surgeon can scan. You can review the file. You can work and see the files as the lab creates the restoration. You can share that technology with your patient. I'm telling you, it works fantastic, and patients will love you for it. The patient receives restoration much faster, eliminates your impressions appointments, reduce your cost for your impression materials and supplies, drastically reduce chair time, higher profits for restorative clinician, same price for the patient, much higher perceived value, happier patient, and more patients will be referred to you with this technology. So this is kind of a diagram. You're welcome to take a picture of this. Surgeon solution. This is the workflow. This is behind the scenes. The surgeon scans the Encode healing abutment. They send it to National Dentex, to your laboratory. The file is received by National Dentex. National Dentex designs the abutment and crown. They send the file to Zimmer Biomet. That's all I'm doing is milling a crown, and I'm shipping it back to the lab. In the meanwhile, the lab is milling the crown and printing the model. At this point here, everybody gets the case together, and then it's sent back to the dentist for delivery. Nobody else can do this style of technique. Yes, you can remove a healing abutment. Yes, you can place a scan body. Disturbed tissue, potentially disturbs the bone. You can take things on and off, tissue collapsing. You can do that on these separate appointments. But with Encode, you don't have to remove it. So you have minimal swaps of taking things on and off. You leave the healing abutment on, and you go through the protocol for success. Number one, it's a team effort, technology patient. It's a wow factor. And you can be involved as much as that you want as a general dentist with these types of cases. Last case to show, we happen to have a family of products, and our newest family member is networking with iTero. We work with all digital scanners, but currently today we are in close proximity networking with our family, which is with this particular system, iTero. And they have the older version, the newer version in the middle, and of course, they have their laptop version on the right side. Last couple pictures and I'm done. So this is an example. Digital dentistry. Specialist or dentist scans the Encode healing abutment and sends the images to National Dentex Encode-empowered dental laboratory. National Dentex receives the scans, designs the abutment, and the crown. So at this point here, models are fabricated, printed, or milled, and a crown is generated all from a digital scan and then utilizing these models. And then from here, we deliver the restoration. 100% of the time, I love seating jigs. Here's a nice a resin that's applied over to the natural tooth here. I probably would have brought this resin. This is GC pattern resin. I probably would have brought it over to here too for you guys. But in this case here, I would have opened this up just a little bit, just so you make sure that everything draws and everything's perfect. But go ahead, you remove the healing abutment, utilize your seating jig, seat the abutment, put the screw in, remove your seating jig, try on your crown, adjust your contacts, your occlusion, which should be minimal, and then you can either cement the restoration or in a case, you could screw it down, but this is cementable. Beautiful aesthetic result with a simplistic process. So this is my summary. Why? What does digital dentistry mean for your patient? Less frequent, shorter appointments, more precise outcomes, higher aesthetic results. All abutments are custom designed specifically for your patient, faster time to the final crown. Summary, what does digital dentistry mean for your patient? What does it do? It provides patients with the newest of technology. More comfortable appointments for your patients, more predictability and aesthetic outcomes with faster final results. So I spoke a lot. I'm just looking at my phone, 6:05 on my time, so 7:05, 5 minutes over. That's not so bad. But I gave you a lot of information. I talked a little bit about stock abutment, custom abutments, how stock abutments can work and how they cannot work. We talked a little bit about cement. We talked a little bit about screwmentable restorations. I want you to take x-rays and send those to the lab. They're going to love you for it. And of course, we talked about the simplification of this product that has a wonderful history of over 16 years called BellaTek Encode Impressioning System. So what I'm going to do at this point is, let's say, Susan, I'm going to put this back over to you to see if I can answer some questions that have come through. So bear with me just for a moment. I need to open up my screen. We have a good size of attendees tonight. I'm looking to see if we have any questions, and I'm going to see if I can open this up. Bear with me just for a moment. Let's see, I want to see if I can open this. We talked about this earlier. Let's see here. Bear with me just for a moment. Trying to open this so I can see this. What does BellaTek, let's see, what does BellaTek mean? Yeah, so basically BellaTek is the umbrella of the system. Bella stands for beauty. So BellaTek is the umbrella of CAD/CAM dentistry. Let's see here. Let's see, I missed the beginning. Let's see here. Bear with me just for a second. Oh, we're recording. How can you mill the crown before the abutment is completed? Yep. So when we think about digital dentistry, I want you to think about this. So you take an impression or a digital scan of the Encode healing abutment. When the laboratory receives the file from an intraoral scan, or maybe they have a model, a stone model of the healing abutment. You took an impression. The laboratory deciphers the codes. By deciphering the code, they can go ahead digitally create an image of the analog placement or the actual implant placement. What the laboratory can then do is actually physically design the abutment within CAD. When they design the abutment, they can also design the crown at exactly the same time. They merge the files together, and then they create their crown. They take the file, and then they mill their crown. They take the file of the abutment, they send it down to Zimmer Biomet. We mill the abutment, the laboratory mills the crown, and in the meanwhile, they're printing models with or without analogs. When everything comes back within a couple of days, you can physically place the abutment on the model, and the crown that was milled in the lab, you can actually put them together. It's digital dentistry at its best, and it works beautifully. What is the price difference between stock and custom abutment? So that is something that I would like for you to talk with your laboratory about, National Dentex. The thing is that when you look at an abutment, and you look at a CAD/CAM abutment, and you look at a custom abutment or a stock abutments are always going to be less in cost. But there is still more work involved where you have to prep that abutment. And remember, I mentioned at the beginning of the seminar that the most ideal tooth location is the best usage for a potential stock abutment, but that doesn't always happen. So when a laboratory fabricates and preps this abutment, if it's a little more mesial, distal, buccal, lingual, if it's a little bit of an angle, a little closer to this tooth than that tooth, it could potentially create a problem. We're not necessarily taking a stock abutment and then creating a screw retain restoration on stock abutments. We shouldn't do that unless it's perfectly placed. And I think you guys would agree. So the thing is that we need to make sure that when the custom abutment is fabricated, that it has beautiful shape and profile compared to a stock abutment. Stock abutments are going to be a little less in price. But again, the fact is it's more work for the laboratory. And when you think about cost factors, I'm going to tell you right now, if you compare and you talk with NDX, you compare a stock abutment, you compare that to a custom abutment today, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I don't know exactly the pricing, but I'm going to tell you, I believe that the CAD/CAM abutment, the custom abutment, is going to be less expensive. So I want you to talk with them and share that. But there's always advantages to that. I also have here, can Encode be utilized with other implant systems besides Zimmer Biomet? Currently today, it's Zimmer Biomet. We're the only product in the world that has anything like this. So it's with Zimmer Biomet, which would be the Certain system and the TSV, two great systems with great history, pioneers in the business. Here's another question. Can Encode be placed on the top of a multi-unit abutment? Well, that's a good question. For the fabrication of a CAD/CAM mill bar or a hybrid? Not yet. I know it is something that we're thinking about. I know that the opportunities are potentially there, but we're not there just yet. So unfortunately, I'm going to say that the answer is no for right now. Okay, it works on the implants, the implant in itself. So not with abutments. We're talking single unit, multiple unit, full arch cases, but we're talking just traditional dental implants, but not off of abutments. Here's another good question. What abutment restorative material options are available? That's a good question also. So with the certain system, you have titanium alloy as the abutment, so it's silver, or you can go through the process of titanium nitride coating the actual abutment and giving it that beautiful, beautiful gold hue, okay? I love doing that. I will say this. About 8 or 9 years ago, Biomet 3i went on the limb. We are actually, as a company, for the certain implant system. So think about how big Biomet is. I mean, Zimmer Biomet is one of the biggest and largest implant companies in the world. The fact is that the Biomet certain system, believe it or not, in CAD/CAM technology, I don't offer a zirconia restoration. And Dr. Lazara, one of the founders of 3i, of Biomet 3i, you know, the problems in the past were that they potentially might fracture. And I didn't say it was because of the materials. The fact is that if you put a little pressure on that, or if the lab had prepped it or adjusted it, it changes the molecular structure of that material. And it potentially could cause a fracture. Or when you're torquing, you put a little pressure with your torquing tips, lateral pressure on that abutment, it can easily fracture. So back in the day, Dr. Lazara said, you know, one is enough. So we took the zirconia. We were the first and only company to take it off the market. And believe it or not, I've been surviving for almost 8, 9 years without a zirconia abutment. But we titanium nitride. It is strong and it looks beautiful with zirconia restorations. Now, on the other hand, the TSV implant, it's titanium alloy. It is silver in color. We don't have the option just yet of titanium nitride coating, but that's on the verge. But we do offer for the TSV 3 shades of zirconia. So that is a very, very nice option to think about. And as far as I know, I don't have any more questions. So right now I'm coming at about almost 1/4 after. So for me, I want to thank all of you for attending this program. You have my email. If there's anything that I can do, any questions that you may have, any contacts that I can create between our digital dentistry sales specialists that work in the field with all these wonderful national Dentex laboratories and technicians and their salespeople in the field. If I'm able to put that together, I'd be more than happy to do that. If you're looking for articles, anything that I can do technically, you have my email, and I'm more than happy to help you. So from myself in Chicago, I hope that you all stay healthy and safe, and I want to thank you very much for attending this evening. So you all have a good night and take care. Bye now.